Hi, Sam. Welcome to What's Your Next podcast.
Hi, Laura. This is the treat of my day.
I am so excited to chat with you. We were chatting before. We had so much in common, and I was like, and I want to talk about the thing that really caught me why I wanted to talk to you about, which is female rage and perimenopause. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, hi. So I'm a South African. I now live in London. And yeah, I've been writing basically my whole life. I've been writing full time for, I think, about 7 years now. I've written across a whole bunch of different genres. A couple of years ago, I brought out a young adult novel, but my debut adult novel has just come out, which is a book called Femme Feral, which is the one that we're going to talk about mostly today.
All right. I am so excited. So when this book was pitched for me, I'm not a big horror. I'm like scared cat. But this
Yeah.
book was pitched to me as Femme Feral, like female rage, or basically a woman in her 40s, my age, 44, is going through perimenopause and she's having this unexplained symptoms because that's what it does. And people are not listening to her. And unfortunately, she might be turning as a werewolf. Her symptoms might be much more unexplained. Maybe she was getting too much testosterone.
I think the joke for me is that, and I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, there is still so much gaslighting that happens in the medical industry.
Yes.
As we come to this age and all these things start happening to us that no one had ever told me about, basically, until Phoebe Waller-Bridge 5 years ago. And we go to try to get help for all these things that are happening to us that are often much more disruptive than just hot flushes, which is the only one that I knew of, honestly.
Yeah.
But like anxiety, we can't sleep, like all these changes. And we go, and I've seen this happen to more of my friends than I can count. We go to a doctor, we say, please help me. And the doctor, who may have gotten half an hour of training about perimenopause, which is something that happens to approximately 50% of the human population in their entire training group, all their training, will sit there and shrug and say, have you tried losing some weight, basically? And then we're made to feel like
we're made to feel you have little resistance and you can't lose weight. It is the plateau happens with the weight because it doesn't.
exactly.
As someone who has PCOS, I've been dealing with my hormones issues since I was like 15 when I had my period. And I could not lose weight. And everyone's like, oh, you just have PCOS. And I was like, okay, was there a solution for this? No, it's just a bunch of symptoms that we just call polycystic ovary syndrome. And then I graduated perimenopause. And that's been, what is going on? Nobody knows how to handle the hormones.
Do you know that the US Institutes of Health, the National Institutes of Health, so that's the body that coordinates all sort of medical research in the US, they didn't require any women to be involved in any medical trials until the 90s because they were like, well, women have hormones. Men don't have hormones, obviously. Women have hormones, and therefore we're too complicated. And perimenopausal women are still today excluded from the majority of medical trials because we're like this black box of like mystery. Who knows? Who knows what's happening? So it's only very recently that we've started to understand the way that all of our systems, from our nervous system to our immune system, all of our our bodily and mind systems are affected by this time, and how that also interacts with the fact that we're the first generation of women where more people than before have a lot of responsibilities in the workspace, and the culture has just started making some space for women to have public platforms in the media, for example. And there's also the social barriers that we start hitting at this age where we haven't even started having these conversations. And I think the book started really as a joke about how the medical industry knows about as much about werewolves as it knows about perimenopause. We're like this mystical,
They know more. They probably understand the cycle, the specifics of what happens. They have historical data that has reviewed for years. Like, woman, what do you mean? We can work on erectile dysfunction. We have
exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, I'm glad you started off talking about rage because I think really I wrote this book because I was so heartbroken and angry seeing what was happening to all of my friends hitting this age when we needed support and just finding that there was no support available for most of us. And we had to fight so hard to get anyone to take us seriously.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the book so the readers can feel we're talking about it, it's Femme Feral. It is a horror, but
Yeah.
it's a female-led horror.
Yeah.
Women in male-dominated fields. Like, we love to see that.
Exactly. Like horror. I mean, I know, so actually I am also quite a scaredy cat as well, I must say. Like when I watch horror movies, I have to have a blanket and I mostly
Yeah.
listen to them. But I love horror. And even though it scares me, I grew up reading horror. And when I was growing up, that was a very male dominated space. And it's been
Yes.
really exciting. That isn't true anymore. But yeah, so I'll tell you about the book. So Ellie, the main character, is a woman in her 40s. And she, like many of us, at this time, she is a woman with an infinite to-do list in her brain. So she's responsible for a 20-year-old daughter who's in recovery from an eating disorder. She has a very lovable but very useless husband. She has a very high-powered job where a lot of people rely on her, but she's one of those people that everyone in the company says, oh, Ellie's the one who really runs things around here. And yet no one is willing to actually give her the promotion or the money that matches her level of responsibility. So she's kind of juggling 5 million balls, maybe too effectively. She's been hyper competent her entire life. But then these things start happening to her, and these things that she can't explain. She finds herself waking up on the other side of the city, covered in blood and with no memory of where she's been. And of course she goes to the doctor, and the doctor's might be perimenopause. Who knows? So, oh, my body hair is changing. My nails are growing thicker. Could be perimenopause. Who knows? So she just absolutely can't get anyone to explain what's happening to her. What is actually happening, and I'm not very coy about this, is that she is in fact turning into a werewolf, and she doesn't remember this, but when she is in her beastly state once a month, this other version of her, which is made up of all of the rage she's been repressing for so long so that she can keep looking after everyone else in her life, that beast goes and roams the streets and solves some of her problems in a slightly more violent way, let's say.
Yeah.
So it is quite horror, but I think it's really like on that border, I think, between so it's not overly gory. I stripped back. I mean, it does have some animal death. I do want to tell because I know that's a hard line for a lot of people. But it's really, I think the horror in the story is very much a human horror. It's very much about the horror of being totally misbelieved and minimized as a middle-aged woman who just wants someone to explain what is happening to you. And all the things we repress, that's really what it's about.
Well, it's a commentary of being in your 40s, being a woman. We don't give a fuck about what's going on. Like, at that point, we are like, but we have so much, we have been working so hard, and not just in the physical space, but we're working on the emotional labor, the work labor, like everywhere. Like, it gets to a point where, okay, I think in some ways the 40s is like a reckoning of like your life. And you're like, oh, this is not acceptable. It's much more common to say, I'm going to fire this doctor because the sunk cost fallacy is sticking around with this, doesn't work anymore. Or I'm willing to seek help. Or I'm willing to say, you know what, I'm going to pull back. And instead of doing 100% and run the company, I'm going to watch them fall. I'm going to take 50% as a high productivity. And honestly, I'm a high producer, and I really do a 50% of my job. I'm like, it's a day job. I do what I need to do. I'm good at it. Yeah. But that means I don't want to do the emotional labor of fixing other people because I'm not trying. I think you get to a point where we're not going to go, we have a ceiling. Like, I know we were told we're going to break the glass ceiling and we're going to do the things, but we're like, we have no mental energy, physical energy to break the freaking glass ceiling.
Laura, I feel you so deeply because I think that this is also very much a book about millennial burnout. And it is exactly as you say about how I think we were so lucky in a way and so unlucky in another way to have been a generation of girls who were raised and told you can have everything if you do everything, basically was the kind of hidden subtext there. And I think many of us just spent our lives grinding as hard as we could and doing 200. I mean, if you're doing half of what you were doing, that probably means you're now doing 100%. And your whole life you were doing 200, right? And you were doing 200 at home and at work and in your other relationships and all of these things. And I think what's beautiful about this age, this reckoning the word that you used, I think it is this moment where our coping mechanisms that we've been using to repress everything ugly and angry in us so that we can keep functioning at that level to try to have everything. We can't do that anymore. And then there's this beautiful moment where I think we get to ask ourselves what we're going to do next, because that's failed. So now what? Now what can we do instead? Maybe the answer is we could just go and lure our terrible toxic bosses into an alleyway and rip their intestines out.
Would that be fun? I actually looked out that I actually have a Gen Z boss,
Uh-huh.
which is very different. It's
Mm-mm.
work smart, not hard. It's
Love it.
work-life balance. Is
Mm.
actually trust you what you need to do. We're not going to micromanage you. We're just going to
Mm.
give you what you need to do. Then
I'm always so encouraged when I spend time with people, women, and particularly in a younger generation, because I feel like they're not going to make the same mistakes that we made. I think they're making their own. Let's be
no,
clear.
I think
But
it's also, how Gen X is. Some of them who basically said, well, thank you. They're like, we paved the way. And I was like, yeah.
yeah,
And now I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that.
totally. We're done. We're done. We've got nothing else. Now all you get is our far more honest self. And I think what's been a really interesting part of this time for me is also far more honesty with myself, right? Like, I think not to get too autobiographical, but I think the process of writing this book was a process of kind of spelunking in the cave system of my unconscious. And I was surprised by the really ugly things that came up.
Yeah.
But I think in our attempts to hold it together, there's huge parts of ourselves that we don't meet. And what's beautiful about the reckoning of this age, and sometimes you have to fall apart a little bit, you have to crack open to find out what has been trapped inside you, I think. And that's actually beautiful and exciting and thrilling. And I mean, what's been beautiful is having younger friends has been so inspiring for me, but also having friends who are slightly older, having friends now who are in their 50s. And I'm just so inspired by how many of them are just such absolute badasses who have stopped caring. But how liberating that is. Yeah.
Yes. Like my younger friends are all in the 50s, 60s, like Gen Xers. They've been lovely. They're like, yeah, we don't care. And one of them point blank says, the gynecologist doesn't want to see you because you're not earning money from us.
Mhm.
It's not the same with having babies. Like they need more babies because they earn more money. And I live in America where it's just a for-profit healthcare system. So obviously they're not earning money.
It's not that much better everywhere else. I mean, this is the
Yeah.
thing. Like, it's a global problem, and it is and it isn't everywhere, right? It's not that there are other cultures that have had far more respect and held so much more space for perimenopausal women and menopausal women, right? I think it's kind of, I was really interested in exploring also how does the kind of power of this change in this moment also intersect with the kind of society that we've built and
Yeah.
our own, the fact that we, or maybe I should just talk about myself, but many people in my generation really have put work at the center of our lives, and work doesn't love us back. Yeah.
It does not.
Yeah.
You can be okay. So this is I saw this just to TikTok is like you can be so cocky, like you can be so confident that you're safe, but you can lose your job at any moment. But if you lose your job, they're gonna have to replace you with 3 or 4 people, and that has happened for me so many times. In my conversation, I started as a temp into the job, and then I became full time. And then year 2, I decided to move out of the state. And I was like, well, I'm going to leave New York. I'm going to do this. And at that point, there was no opportunity for remote work. So I quit my job. 2 weeks later, the pandemic happens, which was lovely. And they called me. They're like, hey, we need you. And I was like, I don't know. I'm burned out. I think I'm like my chances with this pandemic situation.
Go you.
So they ended up hiring 3 people to do my job.
Goodness.
And a few months later, they called me back. And at that point, I was like, well, I need a job. So the only position we have is demotion. I was like, you know what? I'll take the demotion because that means I just get paid more and I get to do what I need to do. And it helped me set some boundaries. And that was the realization. I was like, yeah. And they kept down, you want to do more? I was like, no. Why would I do more?
Why?
Yes, like,
yeah, if you're not going to get the recognition or the pay.
So it really comes down to, we put work as like the cornerstone, our career, our specific thing, and our identity, and how we feel, and the title. And it was very telling. It was like, yeah, I don't care about the demotion. Like other people be like, oh my gosh, I am like going down. What does it mean? And I was like, it's more money. It's less stress. Like I'll take it.
And if that's not where your identity is and your sense of self, then, you can actually put that somewhere else, somewhere that does actually love you.
So, all right. So for readers, if you're a woman of the certain age 35 and over, I would suggest just buying the book just for the sole reason that the chapter headings are symptoms of perimenopause, because there's so many symptoms. It's like a menu. It's, oh, do I have this? Do I have that?
Okay.
They just have it as a handy book that you can take to your doctor and make a checklist of all your symptoms.
Well, you could be perimenopause, could be that you're turning into a werewolf. Who knows?
Yes, testosterone. It's not something to.
Exactly. That's a real thing, by the way. I don't know if you've tried testosterone cream. Testosterone is amazing, by the way.
Not much. I produce.
Oh, okay. You've got the opposite problem. But if you apply it in the same patch all the time, you sometimes start growing hair in that patch. You have a little patch of hair. It's great.
Yes.
It is. All these things are quite like eerie and embodied, which is why I think horror is such a delicious genre to write about the body and all of the things we go through. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we're going to talk about books, which is what Sam has been looking forward to. I've been looking forward to. So first things first, what kind of books do you read? What genres? What are your go-to? What is your comfort? What is actually like what you actually go back to time and time again?
It's a great question. I'm very omnivorous. So I read books across so many different genres. Books are my deepest love, and they always have been. I think the genre of my heart, like I love this current wave of feminine body horror, basically. So I think like the Carmen Maria Machado lineage and the Shirley Jackson lineage, I like the more body horror stuff than the gothic horror stuff, although I read everything. That's my like favorite, like core favorite space. But at the moment, I'm devouring the Dungeon Crawler Carl books. I love a good high concept sci-fi. I love a cozy romance. I love a deep nonfiction. I have favorites everywhere. Like the world is full of too many delicious books for me to read, and it is the greatest tragedy of my life.
All right, before we get to your book recommendations, we got to talk about the Dungeon Crawler Carl books, because
Can we talk about Dungeon Crawler
I've
Carl?
seen them, but I have no idea. So I feel like you can guide me. Why should I pick this up? Because I've seen them everywhere.
Have you ever played a video game? Or a tabletop role-playing game like a Dungeons and Dragons or...
Well, I play video games
World
like
of Warcraft.
Nintendo and Atari.
Okay, so basically, even if you don't, right?
Yeah.
So I just think that these books... So the premise of the book is that there's this guy called Carl, and he's a real like everyman guy, and he's got this... He's looking after his ex-girlfriend's cat, who's a tortoiseshell Persian cat named Princess Donut. And he goes out one night to try and find the cat. And while he's outside, the entire world is invaded by aliens who take all the surviving humans and put them in this reality show video game to try to survive. So it's a bit battle royale. But Carl and the cat, who when they enter the dungeon, the cat can now talk. He basically has to survive in this totally bananas world, it feels a lot like a video game.
Yeah.
But it's even as someone, so I don't play a lot of those video games. I do play a lot of D&D, so I kind of come in from that side. But even if you're not a big video gamer, I think it's just this fun adventure with such like big characters. So it's like this dude and his talking Persian cat who is exactly like you would imagine a princess cat being. And she at some point gets this pet velociraptor that she starts riding. And it's just this like really, there's a coziness to it, even though there's explosions and action. There's also found family. It's very warm. It's very loving, and very fun. Every single page turn, there's something hilarious or just nuts. You're just like, what? How are we like fighting weird eagle creatures in a submarine? Like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
But it's so fun and outrageous. There's not a single page that's boring. I started reading them because when I was launching the book, I find launching books quite stressful. I love writing books. Writing books is very fun for me. Launching them I find really stressful. So I wanted something easy and cozy. This is so exceeded what I needed from it. It's so rich actually and fun. And now I'm just obsessively pushing it on everyone. I'm like, everyone should read this. It's so fun.
You just sold me the book, so I'm going to try today. I feel like this is a year of trying new things. Experiment, go for it. All right, let's hit your book recommendations. What kind of books do you want to recommend our listeners to pick?
I want to talk about, so also because I haven't been able to read really long novels at the moment because I've been a bit stressed, apart from Dungeon Crawler Carl, I've been reading a lot of short stories. And if you are, like you, Laura, if you are horror curious, but maybe not ready to dive in fully, I think there's some incredible short story collections that have come out in the last couple of years that I think are a great way to dip your toes in, especially if you like more of the sort of weird girl side of things rather than the hardcore gore horror. So, a couple that I've been reading recently, I've been absolutely obsessed by this collection by Eliza Clark called She's Always Hungry, which is, if you liked Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Machado, you'll love this. It's similar kind of like dark takes on fairy tales, and like the title story, She's Always Hungry, is about, it's like this retelling of a mermaid story on this island where it's a matriarchy, and it's weird and dark and delicious and so tasty, basically. I think I've been reading this collection by K. Ming Chang called Gods of Want. And how I found this book, my favorite way to get book recommendations is I go into indie bookshops, because indie booksellers are the greatest people on the earth apart from librarians. And I basically ask them, what is a book that no one ever buys, but it's one of your favorite books in the shop? And then I buy whatever they tell me. And this one I got from a local bookshop called The Common Press around London, which is one of my favorite bookshops. And this is a short story collection where it's been a long time since I've read a book that's so surprising on the sentence level. Like she'll start a sentence, and then halfway through the sentence, it'll just go somewhere you never expected. And it's literary and it's lyrical, but it's also, so they're also sort of like dark stories, but not horror, just kind of uncanny and strange, I think. So that's been another one that I've been really loving recently. Yeah, but I mean, so many. There's just like a glut of delicious feminist horror out at the moment. We love it.
Yeah, I love this. And I love that question to ask your local indie bookstore and says, which one do you think we should pick up that's not selling? Let's actually be those people who are building the word of mouth. That's a true word of mouth. That's the one, hey, this is the one that you want to talk about it, and not only read it, but then talk to your friends about it. And then talk and text to other friends about it. And we can.
And that's, I think, I think that's how you find the hidden gems, right? Where these books who maybe they haven't had as much marketing behind them, but they're better written. And booksellers, they read more than any of your friends, any of my friends, right? So they're the ones I trust when they say this one is a hidden gem. They almost always are right. I've never gone wrong with this technique.
I just love this technique. And this, like, one of the reasons why I have this podcast is because I struggled with getting book recommendations for a long time. I was like, I didn't know what to read. And I always go be like, okay, the big books. I'm like, no, there must be something more. And so asking authors, asking readers, asking like them, okay, don't tell me the big books. Tell me what you actually enjoy. Tell me the hidden gems. Tell me the other genres that you wouldn't think of, but you're like, hey, Dungeon Carl. Like, actually, I'm like, oh, I've seen it. Now I know someone can sell me the book.
So, it's also really fun to ask someone about a book that they like. What is their favorite genre? And then what is a genre that they're curious about? And then I think find the bridge book into that genre. Yeah. Like one that also another like horror short story collection. So I have a friend who reads a lot of historical fiction, but feels less comfortable with horror and sci-fi and more speculative fiction genres. And I recently pushed on her Torrey Peters' Stag Dance, which came out, I think, last year or the year before. Yes. I don't know if you've read that one.
Yes, I did.
So good. Okay. Because that's got that incredible story set in, I guess, the Canadian wilds 150 years ago. I'm not sure exactly, somewhere in North America. But it's got all these different layers of that to kind of make it slightly stranger than a normal historical fiction book, but it is grounded in a lot of really real historical realism that makes it so incredible, including the fact that the whole thing's sort of written in the dialect of the loggers who work as cutting down the trees. It's exceptional. Maybe the best thing I read last year. Yeah.
Oh, Sam, how's your get find online?
Probably on my website. So sambeckbessinger.com. I'm a periodic newsletterer. I also love talking about books. So I mostly just write about all the things that I'm reading or all the things that I'm currently hyper fixating on. Strange little rabbit holes I'm down.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Sam, for being on the show.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks for listening to the What to Read Next. For more book lists, cozy reads, and library tips, visit the whattoreadnextblog.com. your next great read might be waiting there.